This is one of those moments where you stop scrolling, look up, and think, wait, did that really just happen? Because this wasn't some quiet procedural vote buried in the Senate calendar. This was Congress in broad daylight, saying something fundamental just broke. And it broke loudly. Let's start with something most people overlook. The vote everyone's talking about wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about Venezuela. It was about whether a president can push the country toward military conflict without Congress backing it, without debate, and without accountability. And for the first time in a long time, the answer from the Senate was a very public no. The vote failed 52 to 47. And when the gavel came down, that was it. The emergency funding request was dead. No delay, no backroom rescue, no dramatic last-minute save. Just over. Here's where things get interesting. This didn't fall apart because Democrats opposed it. That part was expected. What shocked Washington was who else refused to go along. 12 Republican senators didn't just vote against the request. They stood up and walked out of the chamber during a classified briefing. No speeches, no grandstanding. They just left. And that walkout is what collapsed the entire push for emergency powers and $5 billion in funding tied to Trump's Venezuela operation. That moment matters more than almost anything else happening right now. To understand why, you have to zoom out for a second. Over the past few weeks, Trump has been under pressure from multiple directions at once. Court challenges stacking up, impeachment articles moving through the House, open discussion of the 25th Amendment, forced testimony looming. All of that was already creating political instability. But through all of it, Trump's core argument has been simple. My party is still with me. This vote shattered that illusion. The senators who walked out weren't fringe figures. They weren't backbenchers looking for attention. They were established Republicans with long records inside the party. Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, senior lawmakers known more for caution than rebellion. When people like that leave the room, it sends a message that can't be brushed off as partisan drama. And the reasons they gave weren't personal. They weren't about style or rhetoric. They were about authority. According to multiple accounts circulating among lawmakers and commentators, these senators believe the Venezuela operation crossed a constitutional line. They pointed to the lack of congressional authorization. They cited reports of civilian casualties. They raised concerns about executive overreach. And they made it clear they weren't willing to fund something they believed Congress never approved in the first place. Here's the part most people misunderstand. This wasn't a symbolic protest. This was a hard stop. Without that funding, Trump's emergency powers push collapsed. The Senate wasn't saying, we'll revisit this later. They were saying, we don't trust this operation, and we don't trust you to carry it out. That's a rebuke, not just of policy, but of judgment. Trump's response, at least publicly, was exactly what you'd expect. He took to Truth Social and unloaded. He called the senators rhinos, accused them of betraying the country, and threatened to primary every single one of them in the 2026 midterms. From a political standpoint, though, that reaction doesn't really change anything. The vote already happened. The funding is already blocked. The damage is already done. Calling senators traitors doesn't restore $5 billion. Threatening primaries doesn't undo a walkout. And that's what makes this moment different from past clashes. Trump didn't just lose a vote. He lost leverage. Now here's the twist. The timing of this couldn't be worse for him. This all happened while impeachment articles are still pending in the House. While conversations about invoking the 25th Amendment are reportedly circulating among senior officials. While Trump is facing the prospect of testifying under oath. In other words, this walkout didn't happen in isolation. It happened in the middle of a political perfect storm. Each of these crises feeds into the others. When senators from the president's own party walk out on a funding request, it strengthens the impeachment case. It makes arguments about abuse of power harder to dismiss. It gives cover to Republicans who might otherwise feel pressure to stay silent. And it sends a signal to the rest of government that this president may no longer be politically protected. Some commentators have compared this moment to January 6th, not because the events are the same, but because of what they represent. January 6th was about an attempt to overturn an election. This, Democrats argue, is about expanding executive power beyond constitutional limits. Different actions, same underlying concern, a president testing how far he can go. Whether you agree with that framing or not, it's clearly resonating in Washington. You can see it in the way lawmakers are talking. You can see it in how openly Republicans are criticizing Trump now. And you can see it in the polling. According to a Gallup poll released around January 11th, Trump's approval rating has slipped to 41%. That's not catastrophic on its own, but in combination with everything else, it's a warning sign. Approval ratings matter most when a president needs allies. And right now, Trump needs them more than ever. Another detail that's flying under the radar is the role of Vice President J.D. Vance. Multiple reports suggest Vance has privately signaled opposition to funding the Venezuela operation. If true, that's significant. A vice president distancing himself from a major presidential initiative adds weight to discussions about leadership fitness and internal confidence. From the reactions I've seen, this is the part that's really shifting perceptions. It's one thing for Democrats to oppose Trump. It's another thing entirely for Republicans, including senior ones, to publicly break ranks. That fracture inside the party is real now. You can feel it. On one side, you still have loyalists who will defend Trump no matter what. On the other, you have Republicans who appear to be drawing a line and saying this goes too far. That split is going to shape everything moving forward, especially the 2026 midterms. If Trump follows through on primary threats, it could backfire. Challenging incumbents in competitive states risks dividing the Republican base and handing seats to Democrats. Senate leaders know this, and that's why this moment is so destabilizing. There's no clean path forward. Supporting Trump risks political fallout. Opposing him risks retaliation. Walking out, in this case, may have felt like the least bad option. The money itself matters too. $5 billion is an abstract. That's funding that could go toward infrastructure, disaster relief, education, or healthcare. When senators say no to spending that money on a controversial overseas operation, they're making a values statement as much as a constitutional one. And voters notice that. What we're watching now is a president who appears increasingly boxed in. Courts pushing back. Congress resisting. Party unity cracking. Public support softening. None of these things alone would necessarily end a presidency. But together, they create momentum. This is where the tension really comes from. Power in Washington isn't just about titles. It's about whether people still follow you. And right now, Trump is facing open defiance from places that once reliably backed him. That doesn't mean removal is inevitable. It doesn't mean impeachment will succeed. It doesn't mean the 25th Amendment will be invoked. But it does mean the political landscape has shifted in a way that's hard to reverse. Moments like this tend to become reference points later. The walkout, the failed vote, the visible break inside the party. Years from now, analysts will point back and say, that's when things changed. Whether you support Trump or oppose him, it's hard to deny the significance of what just happened. This wasn't noise. This wasn't theater. This was a line being drawn. And once lines like that appear, politics rarely goes back to normal. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing. I appreciate you.